All right, we're rolling. So I had a new subscriber and shot me a message and wanted me to give my testimony on how I came to Christ and all of that. A lot of people, their testimonies are very, I don't want to say elaborate, but you know, God pulls people out of a lot of different things, whether it be drugs and alcohol, maybe an abusive home life, you know, growing up, and a lot of people go through a lot of different things. You know, I was fortunate enough to not have a horrible home life growing up. I had a very good home life growing up, but it was tough in ways also. So I don't really know where to begin, you know, but I will begin by saying this. You know, if you're following Christ and if Christ is in your life and you're unable to give your testimony of what God's done for you, honestly, I would question your faith. I would question how strong you are in Christ. You got to be able to talk about what God's done for you. Number one, you can't be ashamed of it. You know, if you don't have anything to say about what God's done for you, you know, it makes it look like you're ashamed in a way. It makes it look like, you know, people would question you as to whether or not God's done anything truly in your life. So I'm going to begin, you know, start from the very beginning. I'm from Beaumont, Texas, originally. I was born September 18th, 1979. My father retired 49 years as a master pipe fitter with, at the time when he started, it was Gulf. Everybody remembers Gulf Oil. It's an iconic logo now, you know, you see the Gulf Oil. And there are still a few Gulf service stations here and there. You know, I've seen some up north, up country. Every now and then you'll still see one, and it's a pretty iconic symbol, you know. I'd like to get a Gulf Oil sign and put in my shop. It's a cool looking iconic logo, you know. It became Chevron after a while. Chevron merged with Phillips. You know, it was always tough seeing them have strikes and things like that growing up, and those are things that plant workers go through. But 49 years with Chevron Chemical. Master pipe fitter, worked in the ethylene unit when he retired. He was second in seniority when he retired with the company down here in Port Arthur, Texas. So my dad was a master pipe fitter. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. Late in her 20s, she you know, became a really bad diabetic. So basically my dad took care of everything. I have 5 sisters, all half-sisters, most of who were out of the house by the time I was even born, with exception of my youngest sister, who's 9 years older than me. So she wasn't around for too much longer, but for a little while. You know, growing up, we went to church. Me and my parents had me in a Baptist church growing up, and then at some point my parents just kind of fell out of going. When I was 12 years old, I was invited by a friend of mine to go to his youth group, a non-denominational church, and I loved the youth group and got involved with that at 12 years of age. So from an early age, I knew about God and I was taught about God, and always felt that connection with God. And when I started this youth group at 12, that's when the ball really got rolling, and you know, I really started to mature in my walk with God. This youth group was it was an amazing youth group. We grew to over 200 students, high school and junior high, over 200, and good size youth group, and really ministered to a lot of kids. We did a lot of stuff with inner city kids. We had a van route that would go out into the inner city of my area and get kids and just bring them, to youth on Wednesdays and Sunday nights. So it was a really great thing, really great group to be a part of. Great youth pastor, who is now the head pastor over that same church. His father passed away and he's now the head pastor. So things are going, continue to go really well for him being the head pastor of the church now. But anyway, going to this youth group at the age of 12, at the age of about 17, I became a youth leader within the group. I had my own group of guys that I mentored throughout the week, and we would get together and go eat and things like that. And they would call me during the week if they had any issues, any problems, any questions. So I mentored a group of about 7 or 8 guys that were under my tutelage, younger guys than myself, a couple that were close to the same age. And I kind of held them accountable, you've been getting into your word, you've been praying, things of that sort, just trying to lead them in the right direction. And, so did that up until about the age of 19. Now my personal life was always pretty good. I never got into drugs, never done a drug of any kind in my life. Never been to a strip club as an adult, never had the desire to do those sorts of things. I just always had that connection with God, and those are things that I never was tempted by. I went to a private school growing up, a Christian school, and a lot of people say that, those kids that go to those schools, they're sheltered and they turn out a mess. But, I'm living proof that that's not always the case. Some kids really, they do see the light, and they don't want to go down that path that other kids are going down. And so I went to a private school, was involved heavily in the youth group. At the age of 19 years of age, I was in the gym working out, lifting weights, and that was something that I loved to do. And a member of this church that I was involved in, he was heavily involved in the youth group as well. We went to see John Jacobs and the Power Team, and a lot of people remember this group from the 80s and 90s, and they were just super popular, a Christian group of athletes, men that were just super strong guys, and they would break bricks and snap baseball bats and bend steel bars, and then give their message. And it was a way to draw a crowd, and it was an exciting show. And they'd set the bricks on fire. They would break blocks of ice using their forearms and things of that sort. And so a member of the youth group, big guy, got involved with the Power Team, and he had a tryout, and he became a member of the Power Team himself. And I was in the gym one day, and he came in to work out, and he said, man, I think you could do it. You're big enough, you're strong enough. At that time, I was, heavily in the gym, and I loved it. I wasn't really into dating. Didn't really even date until I was about 21 years of age, just because it wasn't a big deal to me, I knew it would happen when it happened, and so I had a tryout with the Power Team, and I got on with the team, and I was with them for 2 years until they disbanded, until they fell apart and formed other Team Impact and other teams. But I was with them for 2 years, and we toured all across the United States, and that was very trying as well. Some of that stuff that we would do is extremely painful. We would take 3 2x4s, white pine, and tape the ends together, and have a guy on each end of those 3 boards taped together, and they would run at your chest full blast, and they would aim for your chest while you're running toward the boards, and you either run right through all 3 of them, or you get knocked back flat on your back and possibly knocked out. Thank God that never happened to me, but I saw it happen. And you know, is always my thing. I'm going through them, you know. I'm not, I don't want to get knocked backwards. So, but a lot of that stuff was painful, you know. So it's kind of like being a professional wrestler in a sense that you do this stuff night in and night out, and you're taking bumps and getting banged up and bruised up, but you're doing it for God. You're not doing it for yourself. You know, you're doing it to bring people in, yes, and it was exciting, but it was the message behind it, you know. And so I did that for 2 years. It was unfortunate that it ended the way that it did. You know, certain reasons why the group disbanded. You know, not to be negative toward the group or anything, but there were some things that happened where the leader of the group was concerned, John Jacobs, and some things that he did that caused the group to fall apart. And you know, the past is the past, and don't hold that against him, but it really hurt us, and it hurt the team, and it hurt him in a number of different ways, and hurt other people as well. So I did that for 2 years, and you know, also I was involved in the music ministry, you know, while I was still a youth leader, and I just told myself, hey man, this is really cool. So I went out and bought myself a guitar and taught myself how to play enough that I could play on stage. And we had a college and career group that I later played guitar in, so same church. And so I was just always involved, always had that desire to be involved. Not to say that I was perfect, because I wasn't. You know, I ended up later in life dating some people that I shouldn't have dated, and I think we've all done that. And you know, I think the most important thing is to seek, listen to the voice of the Holy Spirit, because He's going to lead you and guide you. You know, and one very important thing to remember is you're never going to have the right people in your life until you get rid of the wrong people. And sometimes it's like closing the hood on a car. You know, sometimes you just got to shut the door on it and move on. You can care about people and you can love people from a distance, you know, and sometimes you have to distance yourself from the wrong people. That way you can get some good people in your life that are going to lift you up and not tear you down. Some good people that are going to encourage you in the right ways. And sometimes, unfortunately, you even have to do that with family, you know, and that's the hardest thing. But doesn't mean you don't love them just because you distance yourself from them. It just means that, you know, you don't need the drama in your life, you know. And as adults, the older we get, you know, we have our own stuff to tend to, you know. And we all know that person that calls us only to talk about what's going on with them, you know. It's never, hey man, how's it going, Mike? You know, how are you doing? How's the baby doing? You know, I've got people, I have a daughter that's, you know, she's going on 2 years old, and there's still people saying, I gotta get over and see that baby. She's so beautiful, she's so cute. And I'm thinking to myself the whole time, well, how old does she have to be before you get your butt over here to see her? You know, I just let it go in one ear and out the other, because people are so caught up in their own lives and their own world that they make the time for you when they want to make the time for you. You know, if they really cared, then, you know, it doesn't bother me, you know, but I just let people talk, man. You know, actions speak louder than words, and with God, it's the same way. So many people want to acknowledge God, but they don't. There's no action behind it, and the Word of God is very specific. It says, faith without works is dead. So, and you know, Christ desires to have a relationship with us, and if we're not putting forth any effort into that relationship, it's not going to go very far. You know, how much are we going to learn about God if all we're doing is acknowledging Him? I believe in Jesus. Of course I want to go to heaven. I'm going to heaven because He loves me. No, He does love you. But guess what? How much do you love Him? How much are you willing to give up? He gave you His life. What are you willing to do? You know, it goes both ways. And that's what few people want to accept and realize. You know, though my testimony is not the most elaborate when it comes to what God's pulled me out of, you know, God was always there, and I felt His Spirit from a young age, and I had that good, you know, for the most part, good home life to where, you know, I knew that God was real, and I always desired Him in my life. You know, and when I say that I had a pretty good home life, the only bad things that I can say is issues with my mom, especially growing up. She was very, very sheltering. You know, I can remember still being at home at 18 years old and having a curfew, you know, which I guess at the time I thought it was crazy. Any kid ought to have a curfew if they're living at home. But kept tabs on me pretty good, you know, and you know, it was what it was, and very, very sheltering, and it had a positive effect on me. It didn't have a negative effect. I knew why they were doing it, and I knew they were trying to keep me safe even at that age. And you know, so looking back, you know, I respect everything that they did as parents. And you know, there were other little things. You know, I wasn't able to go hang out with friends sometimes when I wanted to. I wasn't able to. I didn't have the choice of going to public school. You know, the school I went to did not have football or anything like that. And at the time, it really bugged me. You know, they wanted me in a private school. I wanted to play sports. And at the time, I thought, you know, you're not giving me this option. Sometimes you need to give your kids the option. Sometimes you need to give a little bit of leeway, and, you know, I wasn't given that. But unknowingly, you know, because I didn't have sports in school, it got me into the gym. And I put my extra time into that. And God used that and took me to a place I never, ever, ever thought that I would go with the power team. And you know, learning, because I was so quiet then, and a lot of people don't share their testimonies because they're afraid to speak, or they feel like they're not a good speaker. I'm not the best speaker in the world, but I learned to speak from speaking in front of thousands of people as a member of the power team. So I mean, it you know, you just learn to go with it. We all talk different. I have a Texas accent, you know, I'm from Texas. You just learn to let it flow, you know. And there was a lot of temptation with being a member of the power team, as I said. Females following you home, not home, but to the hotels, I should say, and just, here it is, a Christian-based event, and these women just throwing themselves at you. It was pretty, oh, somebody got busted. But anyway, anyway, it's a nice day today. I'm outside, and nice sunshiny day here in southeast Texas. But anyway, yeah, just a lot of craziness, you know, showing up at the hotels, and trying to hook up with you after a show and things of that sort, and just crazy. It was crazy, crazy. But you know, just kept my mind in the right place, and I was doing it for God, you know. Didn't make a whole lot of money. We were paid to do it, but it wasn't a tremendous amount of money, and the shows that we did were upward of 10 grand, you know, a show. So all the bricks and all the Louisville Slugger baseball bats that we would snap, I mean, some of those are highly expensive ball bats. We would go through 60 a night, you know. But God kept it going, and God changed a lot of people through, you know, what we did. And it was a great, amazing, amazing time in my life, you know. And so now that I'm older, I just focus on my kids. I'm the father of 3 sons, and I have little Emmy. That's my my daughter now, and she's nuts, man. She's a ball of energy like you wouldn't believe. But she's She's adorable. She's my life, and she's all over the place, and trying in my old age to keep up with her. So by the way, I'm 39. I'll be 40 this year, 2019, in September. But yeah, you have to be able to talk about what God's done for you. And you know, a lot of times God will lead people through drugs and alcohol, and thank God I had good parents that taught me right, and I never got into that a whole lot. I do drink a little bit on the weekends. I don't get plastered. I don't get stupid. I never hung out in bars. Never had the desire to. Never done a drug of any kind in my life, ever. So, and I'm not building myself up here. I'm just saying, you know, by having that good upbringing, it kept me from wanting to dive into any of that. And my oldest sister passed away from a drug overdose, and I grew up my whole life not seeing it firsthand, but hearing about it and seeing her messed up on pills and different forms of drugs, and going to visit her in the hospital after an overdose and things of that sort. And finally, you know, she did herself in a few years back, and you know, when you grow up with that, you kind of expect it. You know, you kind of you hope that the person changes, but they have to change for themselves. They have to have that want, the want to change for themselves. They can go through rehab, they can go through anything that you want to try to put them through, but if they don't have the desire to change themselves, I'm sorry, they're not going to. You know, what they need above all, above therapy, above rehab, they need Jesus Christ, because he'll do a change within a person that there's no psychologist, no doctor that can do what he can do. And so anyway, that's just a little bit about my testimony and where I come from. If you haven't already, guys, please click on the bell, be notified of all my future videos. And also, you know, that notification, having the parentheses on the bell, will let you know when I go to a live stream Q&A where we talk about God and Scripture and other topics as well. You guys can join me for that. If you can't, you know, I've been doing them on Tuesdays, 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And if you don't feel like you can join me at that time, it's okay. You can email me at righteousredneck777@yahoo.com. I'll see your questions. I will answer your questions. And on my next live stream, I will answer those questions. And then I will post the video once it's completed. That way you guys will never miss, you know, having your questions answered. You know, and I could always just shoot back email, but I don't like to do that. I like to take it and actually speak it directly to the person. You guys will be able to see it. And I always do my emails first thing in the videos. So, and I'll try to email you back and let you know, hey, it's coming up on my next live stream. I'm gonna get your questions answered. So thank you all, my new subscribers. I appreciate it. And it's not about the subscribers, it's not about the views, it's about doing what God's called me to do. And just, you know, if I can reach one person, hey, that's one more soul for Christ. So that's what it's all about. That's why we live. We're not here to please people, we're here to please God. Keep that in mind. I said we're not here, we don't exist to please people. We're here to please God. And if we're pleasing God, then we're on the right track. So you guys think about it. Take it easy. Comment below. Subscribe and share this. You guys take it easy.